You don't remember the storm, of course. You were just a baby then, barely old enough to grip your mother's finger or blink when firelight flickered across your face. But she remembers. Everyone does. They still talk about that night, sometimes in quiet tones, sometimes with a faint laugh, but always with wonder. Your mother says the wind came howling down from the mountains like it had a grudge against the earth. Snow slammed sideways against the walls, thick and angry. Even the goats in their pen shuffled restlessly. And the longhouse, strong as it was, creaked like an old man settling his bones for the last time. You should have cried. That's what babies do. But you didn't. You were wrapped tightly in sheepskin, your little fists tucked against your chest, your mouth slightly open. Your grandmother placed you near the hearth, not too close, but close enough that the warmth would wrap around you like breath. Your father reinforced the door with a beam of oak. Your mother sat beside you, whispering songs older than memory. That's how Viking children survived their first winter. Not with strength, but with shelter. Not with silence, but with song. And you slept. Not restlessly, not in fits and starts, but deeply. With your breath slow and full, like you had already learned that storms end, and warmth returns, and the world, no matter how fierce, always softens in time. You don't remember that night, but your body does. Because now, years later, when storms rise again, you don't fear them. You feel something else. A kind of memory that isn't made of words. A rhythm beneath the noise. A hush waiting under the howl. And even as the wind rattles the beams and snow scrapes across the turf, you feel it again, the urge to close your eyes, because that's how it began. With sleep, with warmth, with the calm in the center of a Viking storm. You've lived in this longhouse your entire life. The walls are made of timber, thick with age, dark with smoke. They breathe with you. In the summer, they hold out the heat. In the winter, they press it close to your skin. No one calls this place luxurious, but it is more than shelter. It's memory, layered in straw and soot. You walk across the floor, each step soft on the packed earth covered in woven reed mats. The hearth still smolders at the center, not blazing, just glowing quietly. It doesn't need to do more. The fire doesn't dominate. It participates. It offers enough. Above, the smoke finds its way up through the vent. A space where cold sometimes enters, yes, but where breath also leaves. The longhouse isn't sealed. It's not afraid of the outside. It lets the night in slowly, carefully, just enough to remember where you are. And you were proud, but not alone. You still heard the sounds of others, still felt the gentle pull of bodies near, still dreamed with the fire watching. That's the secret of the longhouse. It doesn't silence the world, it slows it. It softens it. It takes the sharp edges off the dark. You sit by the wall where the boards creak softly when pressed. You feel the rhythm beneath them, as if the house has its own heartbeat. And maybe it does. Maybe that's what cradled you long ago when you slept through the worst of storms. Even now, as wind pushes against the roof and snow taps lightly at the shutters, you feel only stillness. Because here, you are held, and held things do not break. The storm came from the sea. You didn't hear it. But the others did. They said the wind rolled in like a growl, not a howl, low and steady, like a warning from something older than the fjords themselves. The shutters rattled, the door swelled in its hinges. Somewhere out in the dark, a branch snapped like bone. But you didn't stir. Your mother watched you sleep. She said you didn't flinch, not even when the thatch above moaned with the weight of wet snow, not even when the baby goat bleated once, sharply, before curling back into itself. She lay beside you, hand on your chest, wondering if the fire's warmth had made you dream too deep. She thought of waking you. She didn't. There was something sacred about your stillness. Outside, the storm clawed at the world, pushing down trees, flooding the path between the woodpile and the shed. The men rose to check the roof. One of them slipped, laughed, said the gods were angry again, or maybe just bored. They hammered extra stakes into the wall beams, tossed more wood onto the fire, said prayers without saying them. You slept through it all. And your grandmother, she whispered a word then, not in fear, in awe. She said, "This child was born under the still moon." No one argued, not because they believed her, but because it felt true. Sometimes truth isn't about facts. It's about how something sits in your bones when you hear it. That night, while the world outside raged and the roof groaned and the goats shifted uneasily, you rested without flinching. You were swaddled in sheepskin and wool, tucked between warmth and breath, and you did not dream of storms. Your mother said it was like the house wrapped itself around you, like it knew you needed more than sleep. You needed safety, so it gave you that in silence, in stillness. And when the storm passed, because of course all storms do, the sun never quite returned. Not right away. It just lightened the sky into gray. A tired sky. A sky that had shouted all night and now wanted only to whisper. You woke then, blinking once, letting out a sigh as if nothing had happened. As if the world hadn't been shaken by wind and noise, as if you'd been carried through something invisible on a current of calm. And in a way, you had. No one ever forgot that night. Not because the storm was the worst they'd seen. It wasn't. But because you had slept through it. Peacefully. Entirely. That kind of rest is rare. Even now, years later, your family talks about it sometimes. In quiet moments. After the evening meal. When the fire is low and the house hums gently. They say, "Remember when the storm came and the baby didn't stir?" And someone always nods. Because it wasn't just sleep. It was a kind of knowing. A message from the body to the earth that said, "I trust you." And the earth somehow listened. You woke into silence. Not the kind that felt empty, but the kind that felt earned. Like a room that had just finished praying. The longhouse was warm, though the fire was little more than glowing ash. You blinked up at the rafters, at the drifting lines of smoke softening the beams. You didn't know it yet, but the storm had passed. Your mother didn't rush you. She never did. She simply reached out and brushed a bit of straw from your cheek. Her hand was warm. Her eyes were tired but calm. You didn't speak. You didn't need to. In this house, there were whole conversations made of glances and breath. Someone stirred the embers. A few sparks leapt, then fell. The fire would need coaxing, not force. Like most things in the north, you sat up slowly. The sheepskin slipped from your shoulders, heavy with sleep. Your body still remembered the shape of the night. It didn't shake off sleep like a blanket. It unfolded out of it, like mist rising off a river. Outside, the snow had quieted everything. The trees stood frozen, their branches heavy with glassy ice. The world looked paused, wrapped in its thickest winter, but there was beauty in the hush. Even the chickens seemed slower that morning. You helped your sister gather firewood from inside the door. It was stacked just far enough from the hearth to stay dry, just close enough to stay warm. She handed you a piece, and you laid it carefully on the coals. It hissed, but didn't complain. Your grandmother was already awake, whispering a morning chant. Not loud enough to be heard, but loud enough to be felt. She rocked back and forth slightly. That was how she remembered the gods, with motion. The others were stirring. Your uncle stomped the snow from his boots before ducking back inside. He brought news that the goat fence still stood, that the roof had held, that nothing was lost. And everyone nodded. Not because they were surprised, but because it mattered to say it aloud. Nothing was lost. Breakfast came slow. Broth from last night reheated gently, passed from hand to hand. Bread warmed on a flat stone. You chewed quietly. No one asked questions. There were no schedules, no urgency, just mouths to feed and wood to split. And you realized something, not with words, but with your bones. Sleep wasn't over. The storm had moved on. Yes, the house had survived, but something lingered. A kind of stillness, a kind of reverence for the quiet. You didn't leap into the day. You didn't rush out to play. You stayed close to the hearth, letting the morning arrive fully. Even the adults moved more slowly. Because survival wasn't a performance. It was a rhythm, a practice, a communal breath. Later, your mother would tell the neighbors how well you slept. She'd shake her head with a half smile and say, "Not even thunder could stir this one." And they'd laugh softly and glance at you like maybe you held a secret. And maybe you did, because when you sleep through a storm and wake up gentle, the world feels different, not smaller, not safer, but more known. And in the known, we find peace. You always thought the grown-ups never truly slept. They were the first to rise and the last to settle. Their eyes always tracing the edges of the longhouse, their hands always in motion, mending, chopping, stirring, patting.